Good afternoon, ladies. Today I'm going to share one of Stampin' Up's tools. It's called the Stamp-A-Ma-Jig. The Stamp-A-Ma-Jig is a tool for making your projects straight, and it comes with a T-square, and then it also comes with a piece of acrylic. The acrylic is, as you can see, mine is pretty well used, but it is smooth on one side, rough on the other side. The smooth side is for classic ink and the rough side is for craft ink. The Stamp-A-Ma-Jig is great for lining up your sentiments and for doing two-step stamping. Honestly, I purchased the Stamp-A-Ma-Jig a long time ago. I saw it demonstrated and thought, what a wonderful tool, but when I got home, this little tool intimidated me so much that I never used it. So I decided one day I needed to get it out and learn how to use it. One of the reasons I find it so helpful is because when you have a card that you've spent a lot of time on, it's nice to have the sentiment even. I made this card and it has the ribbon weaving, and I didn't want to ruin it with making my Happy Valentine's Day go whopper-jawed, as my dad used to say. So I used the Stamp-A-Ma-Jig to line up the sentiment. So this is a great tool. It's inexpensive, and yet it really has some pleasing results. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the flowers. This is the card that I made, and we're going to make the sunflowers. So I'm going to take this is my Stamp-A-Ma-Jig, and I'm going to ink up my stamp. And this is the main part of the flower with Daffodil Delight. And I'm going to take my piece of acrylic and I'm going to line it up square in the corner of my Stamp-A-Ma-Jig. Then I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to put it up in the top, and I'm going to hold it real tight, and I'm just going to stamp on the acrylic piece. My next step is to take my piece of Whisper White, and I can see now where I want that to be stamped, so I'm going to stamp it kind of in the center, and I'm going to line it up again, and then I'm going to take my piece of acrylic away, stamp up my ink up my stamp, and then I'm going to stamp. So I have my first flower. Now I'm going to make two more flowers, so I'm going to line that up where I want it, and you can see I have stamped on the acrylic, and I am going to line it up in the corner with the Stamp-A-Ma-Jig, ink up my stamp, and stamp. The next flower I'm going to make just a little bit higher, and I'm going to line up my square with my acrylic, ink up my stamp, and stamp. Now the next process, I'm going to do the center of the flower, and so I'm going to take another corner of my acrylic piece, and I'm going to line up again with the square, ink up my stamp, and stamp in the corner. Now this is classic ink, so it will just wash right off of the acrylic piece. Some of the ink that you see on this piece is from using StazOn or craft ink, and that doesn't come off as easily. So now I'm going to line this up on top of my flower, and I'm going to square up my piece of acrylic, take it off, and stamp, and I have it lined up. And then I'm going to do that with all three flowers, and then I will show you how to put the sentiment on. So there's my second flower, and here is my third flower. Take the acrylic off, and I've got all three flowers. Oh, I also want to do the stem, so I'm going to ink up my stem and use my acrylic piece in another corner, and I'm going to stamp my stem, and then the next thing I'm going to do is line that up so that it's coming out of the flower where I want it, and take my acrylic away, ink up my stamp, and stamp. And I think for the stems on the little flowers, I'll just use my Stampin' Right marker and make those come off like that. Now my sentiment. I'm going to do a Get Well Wishes in chocolate chip at the bottom. So I have another corner of my acrylic, and I'm going to ink up my stamp, and then I'm going to line it up where I want it on the page, on the card. Again, I'm going to put my square in there, pull away my acrylic, ink up my stamp, and stamp. I now have a very even card. So I hope that if you have the Stamp-A-Ma-Jig, you will get it out and use it, because it really isn't intimidating once you work with it a few times. And if you don't have one, then I hope you will purchase it and use it, and you will get very, very nice results. Thanks for stopping by.